What's the creepiest thing you caught someone doing? Once I was taking a shit in a public restroom and heard weird noises, so I looked under the stall to check the feet of the dude next to me. I'm not sure why. I just did it to be safe. Turns out the dude next to me was checking at the exact same time I was. It was so effing awkward as we made eye contact nearly upside down by our underwear. I guess it was weird for both of us. My neighbor stands in the backyard and stares through my windows. She also stands outside my apartment door and occasionally follows me into town and into stores. She's a well-known creep in town, but nothing can be done really because that's as far as she ever takes it. Also, my state doesn't have great stalking laws, so the police can't touch her either. Put a mirror against your window so she stares back at herself. This actually just happened. I took my daughters, 13 and 15, to Disney World a few weeks ago. We were waiting in the security line at the Orlando airport, waiting to come back. If you have never been, the security line at the Orlando airport is super long and snakes back and forth forever, so you keep passing the same people again and again. I saw a guy, maybe in his 30s or 40s, take out his phone and appear to be texting, but when we went around the next corner, I could see that he was aiming the camera at my daughter, trying to take a picture of her. It only caught my eye because he did the zoom in thing on her legs. I said, "Oh, excuse me, can I help you? It looks like you are having trouble with your camera." Right in his face. He got out of line. I probably should have told security, but my knee-jerk reaction was to get in between them and address him. My family went to Chicago for a weekend trip. My sister, around 11 or 12 at the time, got catcalled while my dad was standing next to her. "I'd like some popcorn with that," or some sh like that. Without skipping a beat, my dad yelled, "Would you like to go to jail for that?" and aggressively walked towards the group of guys. For a split second I thought at 15 I was going to get into a brawl with my dad. I was pumped up. I was in my bed, then my 5-year-old sister came in and said my name. I didn't say anything back. She went into the bed and started licking my back. "She's going to consume you to become the superior being." When we were about 18 years old, my friend Rich was telling me he was being followed by a strange dude with long hair, beard and mustache. He said he would turn around and see the guy following him from a distance. At night Rich would look out his front window and see the guy standing in the middle of the road staring at his house. 2 weeks later we finished up our band practice in our lead guitarist's backyard and Rich left to put his amp in his car. A few moments later Rich came running back terrified, saying the bearded guy was out front and that he was coming through the gate to the backyard. I saw the creep come in and he asked Rich a few times. Rich asked who he was and he said Doug. They had been schoolmates, but Doug had moved away for a few years and grew his hair long. Rich asked him why he didn't say anything earlier and Doug said he was nervous about approaching Rich because he wasn't sure it was him. So he just stalked him for 2 weeks and Rich was terrified the entire time. I was in bed lounging around in my former boyfriend's house, who lived with his parents at the time, and I heard a knock. I ignored it because I was too sleepy to care. Then I heard the door open a crack. Maybe it was instinct, but I knew I was being stared at. I opened one of my eyes slightly and saw my boyfriend's dad peeking at me through the crack in the door, masturbating. We locked gazes and he scurried off, awkwardly. I never returned to that house again, and never told anyone. Here's one a bit different from the sexual and bathroom related responses. I was living at a halfway house and we had chicken for dinner one day. Later that night I went in the kitchen to get a midnight snack. There was a guy in there arranging the chicken bones from earlier into weird patterns on a table. I asked him what he was up to and he looked at me very seriously and said he was summoning a demon. I had never seen a demon before, so obviously I had some questions and hung around to see the show. Long story short, no demon showed up. It was both creepy and disappointing. I went to a homeschool co-op growing up. This kid a few grades behind me. I was in 11th. He was in 8th I think. Always would disappear to the bathroom to pretend to but was actually playing Game Boy. His teacher sent me to see what he was doing. I go in the bathroom, and immediately he yells, "Go away, I'm going to the bathroom." I look under the stall from across the room. The boy's pants, underwear, socks and shoes are neatly in a pile in the corner. The boy was facing the toilet, laying on his back with his legs wrapped around the base of the toilet, with a full-on lil erection. We made eye contact. I went back to class. His teacher demanded to know what he was doing. I whispered it in her ear after she asked the third time. I got in trouble for some reason. I'm sorry. I'm the one who has the image of a toilet fare in my head the rest of my life. Once we were hanging out on a cliff near a beach on a summer morning around 7 AM. 2 guys and 3 girls. It was a far place, so no much people know this place or go there. We were chilling when suddenly we see an old man behind us jacking off and staring at us. He scared the shit out of us and we never went there again. I was hiking with my boyfriend and we decided to go off trail. We were about 3 hours into the woods in the middle of nowhere when suddenly there was a man in a suit standing about 30 feet away staring at us. We were like, WTF? After a few seconds he just turned around and walked away. We checked the map and there was nothing but woods for miles in the direction he went. When I worked at a liquor store, I saw all manner of creepy things happen. I think the creepiest was this guy who was obviously high on drugs. He was sitting on a bench, and he could not keep any part of his body still. Looked almost like he was having a seizure, but not quite. He gets up and moves away, but his method of locomotion isn't what I would call walking. It was more like vibrating from one area to another. He was like a shapeless amoeba in his movements. It was so bizarre that I couldn't do anything but just stare. Wish I had taken a video. There's a guy who lives near me who walks like that scene in The Big Lebowski, in the dream sequence, where he's leaned back to an impossible degree and moving with only his lower legs. I'm not sure whether to be concerned or impressed, but he seems quite happy either way. Arrived early one morning for college and the door was locked, lights off, so I just waited until my lecturer arrived. A new girl appears asking about the class. She's just transferred from another course. Cool. So I'm filling her in on the class and classmates. Oh, and wait till you meet John. When suddenly the classroom door unlocks from the inside. It's John. Shirtless. I'm stunned. New girl is speechless and without missing a beat he says, "Sometimes I just love standing in the dark looking over the city." Shirtless. Then he turns on the light, pulls on his top and quietly sits at his desk. So our neighbor is out of town for a couple months. He asks us to keep an eye on his property for him. We lived in a rural area with a good view of his entire property from ours. One day a dude in a Jeep rolls up to his place. We watch him step into the property and start walking around going through We drive over there. 4 of us. When we get there he walks up. We ask him who he is and what he's doing here. He makes up some bullshit asking if a guy by the name of Ron or something is home. Not the name of the guy who lives there. We tell him no and ask him what the hell he's doing there once again. He said he wanted to buy a truck off of him that's sitting on the property and he's a friend of him. We asked him his name and he said UHH it's Jeff, like he had to think about his own name. Meanwhile he's got 4 pretty big dudes all standing around him asking him this stuff. He's getting nervous. Eventually he gets in his car and leaves. We call the neighbor and tell him what happened and we call the cops who didn't bother to even come by. The truck he was rummaging through though was missing a couple of small parts. 2 weeks go by, and one morning we wake up to find his truck, his trailer, 2 jet skis, and his sports car stolen. We call the cops and make a report. We found the jet skis and trailer down the road where they crashed it and left it. They weren't caught. I once went to a family meetup and someone invited a person we knew was a pedo. Other than that pissing off a bunch of people, I also was basically given guard duty to follow him around for the 4-5 hours we were there. He took one of the kids off on his bike alone, but I can't really do anything about that cause his mom was fine with it. But when he was following my sister I noticed him intentionally dropping things in front of her to make her bend over to pick them up. Nearly killed a person that day. What kind of idiot would be okay with letting their child be alone with a pedophile? Holding a girl hostage in his dorm. They were arguing. I went over and let them. Mostly her. No, I was next door if she needed anything. Left my door open. They left at some point. Then returned with the guy's big friend. As well as I could hear through the walls. She was suicidal and he figured the best thing to do was tie her up and guard her with his friend who was a bouncer. I had no idea what to do, but I had to do something now. A night patrol officer came through and I asked the boys if they had called her. They were all shifty and the officer was like, excuse me, what's happening? And the cops took it from there. She came by later and said she spent the night in the hospital and was going home with her folks and thanked me. Apparently they tied her up with belts. It was effed up. Weird. What were they thinking? Tying her up would be a temporary solution, not even a solution. BTW, hope she's doing alright now. Was staying at my now ex-girlfriend's place. Woke up in the middle of the night to grab a glass of water to find her ex-boyfriend watching us sleep from the doorway. Dude was a psycho. When I was a kid in living Russia, I would walk to school every day with my brother. One day I had to walk on alone because my brother was sick and he wasn't allowed to be in class. As I was walking, I saw this lady laying in the dirt. She was dressed like an Ann and was screaming something at me. She then started digging the ground with her hands and kept looking at me and saying random things. That shit was demonic, lol. When I was a kid, I was home alone with my older sister. On either side of us, there were 2 girls that I was friends with. They rang our doorbell and begged to come in because 2 guys in a car were staring at them. We let them in and the car peeled out. We could have prevented a double kidnapping that day. That was probably around 1990. Okay, nobody is going to believe this, but I swear on my life, in roughly 1990, on a Greyhound bus, I saw an old lady unwrap and eat a condom. It haunts me to this day.